I really hope that people really, stand up, hold these people accountable. The fact that the cops were pushing people into the fire, that kids, that they closed the schools, so there were kids in their homes because that shut down the schools. They essentially trapped these kids. That's why they have like 1,000 people missing now. For me, it was criminal negligence. These people didn't have to die.
Everybody, Daniel Ramsey here with MyOutDesk. Today's podcast is different. It's not primarily about business. It's interesting because we have a survivor from the Maui fires. I mean, a good friend of mine, I've known him more than a decade, actually was in the middle of it and with his family. And it's interesting because there's tons of failures, disaster prepared stuff that wasn't done by the city, by the state, the fire, the mayor. And it's really an interesting conversation on what it's like to be in a natural disaster for an entrepreneur with your family and how to survive a situation like that. That's what today's podcast is about. Enjoy this. You're even dressed for the conversation. I like it.
Well, there's not much of dressing. This is what I wear every day.
Okay, let's dive in. We only have an hour, and your story probably will take every single minute of it. But yeah, you want to kick us off with what happened?
Yeah. So my family and I decided to go visit a neighbor island. I live in Oahu, where we jumped on the plane to get in Maui. We were planning on spending a week. We landed on Tuesday. We had this great plan and moduled every day. And then we decided that day, let's go up to the up country in Kula and check things over there. And, got a rental car, put a Google Maps. Google Maps takes me around this like small road. It was kind of odd. And I turned on the radio, kind of like listen. It was very windy and trying to listen to what's going on, and found out that there was some brush fire going on up country. And we decided, okay, well, let's pivot from there. Let's go closer to where our Airbnb is, because we had gotten there like around 10:30, 11, and we couldn't get into our Airbnb until 4. So we said, okay, let's just drive closer and go somewhere on the beach. And we stopped at a restaurant and we didn't eat. We just looked around this area that's really nice. And then we said, oh, let's go closer. And then as we like maybe about 5 minutes away from that restaurant, the next place didn't have any electricity. So I was like, oh, that's weird. So we drove all the way to our Airbnb, around our Airbnb, and we found out that everything around there was closed because they didn't have electricity since like 6 a.m.
Wait, surprisingly, what about cell phones? When did that? Did you
still have cell phones? Yeah. So at the time we still have. So we drove. We said, okay, well, there's no food around here, and there are people waiting in line at Safeway.
So we drove up there to the Ritz to see if there's any food there. So we found only the pool restaurant had food, and it was funny because you could tell the chaos has started. So now you're in this like pool restaurant, you show up. One waiter says, we're not taking any cards because the cards are not working, but we'll take cash or we'll take room charge. And then we said, okay, great, we'll pay cash. And then another couple comes in and then they tell them, oh, we don't take any cash. So just room charge. Literally within like 2 minutes, 2 different waiters within the same little area are confused about what's going on. So you can tell even these like large properties, big corporations are not prepared for this. They just don't have any mechanism or systems to deal with natural disasters, even though they're on an island that is known for hurricanes and natural disasters. So it was just weird to me. And so we went from there. We went to our property. We got in there. There's no electricity, so there's no water. We ran out of cash. We just spent all our money on a couple burgers at the Ritz, $30 a pop. And then I said, okay, I need to go find us some water, food, and cash. And so I dropped my wife and the kids at the residence, and I said, okay, it takes about 30 minutes, 45 minutes to get there and come back, and let's say another 30 minutes at Costco. And I said, okay, I'll give it 2 hours. So I left them around 4. Thinking at 6 I can come back, bring dinner and everything. So it took me about It took me about 7 hours to get back. And so that's where everything started. So as soon as I drove away at around 4, I had no idea. So no one knows anything at this moment. And there are fires raging. There's a lot of craziness. Roads are being closed at different parts at different times. So when I left the kind of Poly area, going toward where Costco is, where town is, I took a road coming in, but that road was closed. So I was diverted inside Lahaina, old Lahaina, where all the deaths have happened. So essentially, because they shut down all the roads, I was forced to drive there. And I was literally just kind of like playing a Pac-Man game where I'm trying to figure out how to get, because Google Map will take me one way and I find it closed, and I go around and I go find another way and it's closed, and I try to my own way and it's a cul-de-sac. So I kept just doing that for 3 hours within this area, and not knowing that there's a massive fire going on. And just because I didn't sit still, I kept moving, I didn't know what was going on. And then the radio didn't say anything. No one knows anything really. And people were just stuck on this road. So what happened?
What time is this? This is like 3 or 4 o'clock?
Like around 4:35, 5, 6, like around that period, because I didn't get to Costco until about 6:30. So between 3:30 to 6:30, I was just in that area, which was essentially, they had police on the north side in Kaanapali shutting down the road, and they had police on the south side of Lahaina shutting down the road, and then they shut down this other road from the top. So so people were stuck in the middle, and the locals were essentially trapped, which I feel like horrible, because a lot of people just didn't know. They were waiting. A lot of people just waiting in traffic, thinking that this is going to be opened up. And the locals just didn't know what was going on, because they didn't have now there's no cell phone. There's no communication. There weren't a lot of cops. There was just a few guys that were locking the road and then pretty much jamming everybody into this one little area, which the most flammable part of the island, because this is an old Lahaina town, and all the construction is almost like, plastic, like old construction. It's like a shanty town that's nice. Yeah. And so it's easy. You just put a fire, and then it's flammable. I didn't know that parts of it were burning like crazy while I'm in it. And I just didn't know that, like, few blocks away there were fires and people were dying and craziness.
Was there smoke? You didn't.
There was a lot of smoke and a lot of wind. So I think the wind was hiding a lot of the stuff, because it was still crazy windy the whole day, and we could see like the electric poles moving and the electric cords moving, and you could see all that stuff. So you're just thinking it's just part of the fire, part of the dust. Maybe it's part of the fire that was going, the brush fire that's up north in up country. So you're not thinking that's like so close to you, because literally as soon as I left, our whole thing just blew up. Like probably I was probably between 10 and 15 minutes away from just being engulfed in fire right there.
Being trapped in the middle
and burned. Yeah, like, because it's just like when it caught on, it caught on. It's almost like a bomb that blew up, and it's very quick. So people were trapped on that road and then pushed into the ocean. They had nowhere to go because the cops had stopped on one end and stuff. And it was clear that the cops were not talking to each other. There's no communication. We found that the water hydrants didn't have any water. Later, I just found out this later.
Why did they not? I mean, the fire hydrants.
I guess there was some. So there's a theory. There's a guy that everybody's going after who actually stopped the release of water because he needed the okay from this farm, this taro farm upland, and there was like some water rights issue, and this guy literally decided unanimously that he was not going to release the water until he checks with somebody. It's super bureaucratic, just kind of like negligence, stupidity, unpreparedness. Like the whole situation was pretty much a product of probably the last 2-3 years of not preparing the people, not having the systems in place, not having the procedures and processes and the remediation kind of efforts. So I drove out of there. I went to Costco. The Kahului town where Costco is and where the airport is, like, felt like nothing was happening. felt everything was normal. Nothing was going on. People were living their whole life. They had no idea what was going on, that there was like this horrendous thing happening with people. Now they're probably going to be like hundreds of people dying. People over there had no idea because there's no communication. Everything was shut down. The radio stations, like at least you would have the cops talking to the radio station. The firefighter department should have somebody at the radio station talking to people because they don't have cell phone, they don't have electricity, they don't have internet, nothing. So none of that was happening. So I'm driving. I had no idea. I had no idea what was going on. All I know, maybe the fire had stopped and electricity's back on, but I can't talk to my wife. I can't talk to anybody. I thought her phone was dead. I kept emailing her or emailing kids, and I just couldn't talk to them. So, okay, I need to go back. I drive back the same way I came. The road now is shut down. There's just a lot of traffic, just people. The road was a parking lot. And maybe twice we had a cop car split us and go in the middle, maybe twice. There's not a lot of, I didn't see a lot of motorcycles. I didn't see a lot of helicopters. I didn't see any motorcycle, any helicopter, not a ton of fire trucks, 2 ambulances and maybe a cop. That's it. And so it felt like super light for the event that was going on and taking place. It was crazy. And so I literally was going like inch by inch for probably about an hour and a half. And then I said, okay, this thing is going to be shut down for a while. So I looked at my map, my Google map. It suggested a different route. And that route was going to take 2 hours. And I mean, I'm literally 30 minutes away from the place. Now it's giving me like a 2-hour ride that's go around the island.
What road was that? What road was that? Because we're going to put it up on the YouTube channel.
They call it Death Road. If you put Maui Death Road, that's the one. And so so going from all the way from,
that sounds
it's not
super safe.
No, you die. So it was actually interesting because I drove back to the entry. So it took me about 45 minutes to get there, to get to the entry of that road. And there was a cop right there stopping people from getting in. And there were probably about 20 to 30 cars in front of me. And every person drives to the cop, talks to the cop, and then does a U-turn around the cop and comes back. And I'm like, every person, 100%. The guy in front of me got into an argument with the cop. So the cop was mad by the time I got to him. And I told him, listen, I have to go. I can't be here. I have a wife. I have 2 kids. They're in the dark. They don't have any food. They don't have any water. They don't have a cell phone. They don't have internet, and they're scared and they don't know what's going on. So I need to go. He said, I can't let you go. You're going to die. And I'm like, I'll take my chances. He said, no, dude, the road is like, I don't care. I'll take my chances. So I was the only guy that he let. Oh, like there were hundreds of people lined up. So I went through. I had no idea what this.
Why do you think? Like. First of all, why do you think he allowed you to go through? Because there's something interesting in that lesson.
I guess I was clear. I was persistent, and I was just clear in my. It was a human connection. You could tell. Obviously has kids and can tell the idea of his kids being in the dark with no food, no water. And I mean, there's a human connection there. And I was just serious. I was just telling him, there's no way for me to go back. Because I was like, what am I going to do? He said, just find a spot and park and sleep in the car. I'm like, there's no way I'm going to go sleep in the car with my wife by herself, with the kids and in the dark with no food, no water, no money, no car. I mean, it was insane. Like there's no way this is going to happen. So he kind of, I don't know, felt it, and he let me go, and I went, and this road was getting crazier and crazier, narrower and narrower, tighter and tighter, more dangerous, less road, and just more of a dirt. And I had these situations where there are big trucks coming the other way, and then we have half a road that we have to split. So I'm putting my wheel on like a 6-inch edge against the canyon, and then he gets 2 wheels on the mountain, and then we kind of try to move around each other in the pitch dark. And so we had 3 of those situations where almost gonna you could be like an inch away from falling, and I had no idea what was going on the other side until later when I saw it. And So I made it all the way. Took me about 2.5, 3 hours, going 20 miles an hour. And I got to the kids, and the kids were sleeping. My wife was awake. And then we just went to sleep. And then pretty much about 4 hours later, the sirens in the building started and they evacuated us. They said, hey, grab some of your stuff and then let's prepare to evacuate. We don't know yet, but let's prepare. And we looked at it. We kind of made the decision. We talked about it for 5 seconds and then said, you know what, let's grab everything and let's go. And so essentially at that moment, we decided that this is not going to be a temporary move. This is going to be like, that's it, we're done. And some people did. And they were stuck there for like 3 days. And we said, okay, let's get our stuff, get in the car. And there were a lot of people that were trapped in the building because they didn't have cars. A lot of people go to Kaanapali without a rental car. And they just say, we're going to stay in the resort. We're going to enjoy ourselves and for a week and then we'll go home. So a lot of people didn't have their own transportation and they were stuck. So they were literally told to just walk on the road, on the freeway, go north.
Into what? Why walk away from?
Just away, just essentially away from this resort area, away from potential fires. And so that's the idea. Just go walk north. Now imagine you coming out.
Go walk north in Hawaii by yourself without any food or water.
3 o'clock in the morning.
At 3 in the morning.
Phone.
With no phone.
Yeah.
And no communication.
And no communication. Nothing. Yeah. And no clear direction where to go. Now imagine you've been, this is your first time in Maui and you don't know anything. You don't have any way to communicate. It's just insane.
Or if you have kids, little kids, like what do you do with a little kid?
Yeah. Yeah. And we imagine if I didn't make it, if I didn't convince that cop to let me through, and now my wife and kids by themselves.
Without a car,
without a phone, without money, without water, without food. It's insane. And so we drove, we thought about it for 2 seconds. And I said, you know what? I just came back through that road. It's an insane road, but that's the way, the way out. Let's just do it. So we went and a few cars followed us. And we created this little train. So when you have a little train, anybody that's coming the other way is going to stop for us. And it took us about 3 hours. And around 6:30, 7-ish, we got to the other side. We drove like even slower than I did the first time. But luckily I knew what to expect from there. So I was a little bit more confident in taking that same road 4 hours later. And yeah, we made it to the other side, called the airline. The airlines were confused. They didn't know what to do, how to do things. And we said, okay, let's just show up at the airport and change our flight. We were going to fly on Saturday, but then change them to Wednesday. And luckily we spent a couple hours talking to customer service and they changed our flight. And we moved, we came home. But yeah, I think a lot of it seemed to be that the people in charge or there was no disaster relief, disaster response coordination. There's no training. There's no awareness. There were no systems and tools. And it's surprising because this is an island that's prone to fires. This is a dry island. It's not uncommon. They have arson all the time. They have fires all the time. They have hurricanes. They're very common. I was at a hurricane in 2018, Hurricane Olivia. I was there. So we were trapped for like 4 days. So it's it's not, you're on an island. You're going to get hurricanes and you're 5 hours flight from anywhere else. So you would say you should have systems, disaster relief systems that are like other states should be learning from, not the other way around. And I felt, I lived in California. So in Orange County, we had fires, we had earthquakes, we had stuff and mudslides. So, and I was telling my wife, we've been together for 12 years and we've been through like 4 or 5 natural disasters, earthquakes and fires and a couple of earthquakes, couple of hurricanes. So this is not uncommon. People think of it as, oh, it's a surprise. It's not a surprise. These things happen. And you have to have a process and procedures. And FEMA has a program for neighbors to get certified in how to take care of themselves and how to take care of their neighbors. So the knowledge is out there. The infrastructure is out there. There's no excuse for all these breaks to happen, from cops not communicating with each other, firefighters not knowing which fire they had put down, which one, because they had announced that one fire was down, but it wasn't. The city not communicating with the public through any mean they can, whether text or radio or whatever. There's no reason for cell phones to be down for like few days. There should be redundancy in terms of we have satellites that do cell phones. Now you should be able to have some redundancy in there to bring communication back within a few hours. Electricity being down for that long, hotels not having generators or enough generator fuel, which they run out very quickly. Residences with multiple elevators not having enough generators or generator fuel to last for more than 18 hours. There's like so many things. It's just like for me, it was criminal negligence. These people didn't have to die. These properties didn't have. I'll say property can be destroyed. Let's just say I'll give you that. Fire comes fast, but people didn't have to die. I'm 100% certain if they had just opened one way of the road and just let people go one way and get out of there and communicated with people that they needed to get out of there, they would have gotten out of there. It's not a, yeah. So it was criminal negligence that they trapped people in this area that was going to turn into a fireball.
Wow. One of the things that we talked about is you felt like there were massive lessons for your kids. You have young kids like I do. And I'm typically asking business leaders like yourself, business advice, right? Or like, what'd you do? And this is something completely different, but I think your story is so interesting. What do you think the top 3-4 lessons for that you want your kids or my kids or the listeners, families, the husband, what do you want us to learn from this?
Yeah. So and one of the things we talked about it with the kids for like a few days later, number one is never take no for an answer. Persist, ask, beg, find a different door, find a different window, find a way to get through. Don't assume that, don't assume anything. People say something and then you assume that road is closed, or you assume that there's fire on the other side. Go and check for yourself. Yeah. Go and touch the thing and check for yourself. No one knows. I always tell my kids this. No one knows anything, because information, even if it may be correct 1 hour, can be incorrect the other hour. And so go verify and check, gather your own data, investigate your own information, and then go. Keep moving. Don't stop. Never stop. No. It's kind of like the herd mentality. There's 10 people in a line. People walk by and say, "Oh, there might be something interesting in that line. Let me wait." Or, they see people stopping on the road and they think, "Okay, well, everybody's stopping. The guy in the front might know something. Then let's just wait here." And if you see a bunch of people just parking and hanging and spending time, doesn't mean that is the right decision. Investigate for yourself. And so don't get trapped into herd mentality and just follow what everybody else is doing, because you get slaughtered like the herd. And be prepared. Have, bad shit happen all the time. So have cash, have cash on you. Be prepared. Have like a flashlight. Have multiple battery packs. Have ham radios or whatever. Just be prepared. For anything. There are always bad things happening around the world. There are good times and bad times, and the bad times can come quick. They can happen slowly until it can happen, quickly. If someone says no, it doesn't mean the next person's not gonna say yes. So, if you're gonna go somewhere and someone said, don't trust the authority. That's the idea. So if you go to the airport and someone says you can't change your flight, just move a line to another person and ask the same question. That second person is going to say, yeah, there is a flight. Oh, and I'm going to give you that flight. Or
did that happen to you guys?
Yes. Yes. You ask 3 people in the same place and they give you 3 different answers. So just keep asking until you get the answer you want. You know what I mean? And there's so many, sunk cost ideas. So, there are a lot of people that have spent 2-3 years imagining this Maui vacation, has, got in shape, have saved money, had, paid $10,000-$15,000 to spend 2 weeks there. And now they feel like, oh my God, I'm going to lose all my money. If I don't pivot within, I just got here. Let me wait it out. Let me wait it out and see. It might clear up. It will clear up. Just give me a couple of days. You know what I mean? It will. So a lot of people are feeling that way. They say, oh, let's just wait a couple of days and see. But it may be the most nightmarish couple of days ever, and there's no out. And so pivot, it's okay. Cut your losses. We talked about the whole aspect of, cutting your losses and, risk reward calculation. What is the risk if I stay longer and everything gets shut down and I'm trapped? And what is the reward if they open up? I think the risk is much higher than the reward. And so I won't take that bet. I'll just, I'll take a different bet. So we talked about that, just like very quick mental models that become life or death situation within that environment where you have to make quick decisions. It's okay. Make a quick decision. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, pivot, make another decision. Don't just sit there and indecisive and confused or hoping that someone's going to save us. They will save us. No one's going to save you when shit goes down. when things go wrong. I'm telling you, my wife went down they were giving out some flashlights at the resort that we were staying, and they ran out very quickly. They came late. They didn't know. And my wife had her phone and she had like the battery pack attached to it. So she was in line and someone pointed at her saying, hey, watch out with that battery pack. They might take it away. So it got pretty rough very quickly. Anyone who has water became a scarce commodity. Anyone who has, battery, anyone who has food became scarce commodity. So people start looking at each other, what they're going to take. And that's what happened. There was a lot of looting. There's a lot of, because you couldn't pump gas. There's no electricity. You couldn't get water. The stores were shut down. You couldn't get anything. So people were looting, and whatever they can find, they'll just take. So there were even some young men running around the resort, the building, doing these wolf sounds in the middle of the night. It got wild.
This is stuff that you won't hear in the news. Was there other, like, you're not going to hear that in the news, but this is all human nature stuff.
Yeah.
Like, when there's chaos and anarchy, the worst of it comes out. So anything else happening that over there?
Yeah. No, I think that. I think it was just a lot of people were, a lot of people just were indecisive, and they were just froze, and they just didn't know how to react. And and then there's just people that have like their evil natures came out, and now they start fighting and try to hoard stuff and try to get in or get there first. And it was insane. It was a chaotic environment, and it's just unfortunate that many people are going to end up dead. So that's the sad part. I think for me, as people, as we were talking about this, I'm moving from place to place. I was already planning on moving out of Hawaii because of the bad governance. And we talked about this, how, we have a lot of issues with basic government services. So this is where a lot of times when I tell people that you need good management, you need good governance, whether it's in the business or in government, people do not feel it when they're like, it's kind of like boiling the frog slowly, how you boil a frog. So when they're in it, it's slowly boiling. They don't know that they're underserved. They don't know that they're getting less for what they're paying for. They're paying the highest rate of taxes in the country, 16% state tax. They're paying the highest consumption tax. They're paying the highest energy tax. They're paying the highest price for all the goods that come in, that imported. The port is the most inefficient organization, and it's like almost like a family-owned operation. There's a lot of corruption that add cost and that lowers quality and lowers the optionality for people. So you go to the store, you pay more for less options and less quality. So they don't know that it's happening. You could see it physically in the products, but it's happening in services as well. Like businesses have hard times getting permits. I have a project that I've been waiting for 2.5 years. We still don't know anything if it's going to work. Plan it with the planning department. So all these things are making it where there's less business opportunity. There's less money being invested, less money being made, less resources, less growth, less knowledge coming in, and mentorship and just growth in general. And so they just don't know, because that's all they know, and they're slowly in that environment. They just don't know what's happening. So these things only come up to the surface when there is a crisis or there is a disaster, like Maui disaster. It's like, you could see all the breakdowns in all these different systems that are not talking to each other. Government in general is inefficient, but when you have incompetent, very siloed, very territorial, institutions that are just trying to protect their own fiefdoms, you have these breaks, and people die, property get lost, animals die, environments get destroyed, and we can always point at like, it's a global warming, or it's a surprise, we didn't know, or it's a hurricane, but it's not that. It's how you respond to things. Natural disasters are always going to happen. It's how you respond to it. And
who's to blame? Like, in your opinion, if as you were in it in that moment, like if they hired you, Jay, to come clean this up and fix Maui, what would have to happen, and who would
there is a protocol for disaster relief and disaster response. Everything about that protocol broke. So there are teams or there are institutions that were playing a role within that protocol. Cops, firefighters, FEMA, city council, everything, all the different constituents that were part of that protocol, all of them failed. So for me, it's like you have to change the management everywhere, change the culture, change the systems, change the processes. And then you have to train people. You have to test the people. You have to do dry runs every month. You have to you have to constantly train and keep people on alert that anything can happen at any time, especially around this time of the season when it's known to have hurricanes and fires and stuff. So to me, that's where I would start. I would look at that protocol, and I would look at the constituents within that protocol, and I will evaluate the people within these institutions. And if they're not competent, they need to go, and you need to hire more competent people that are going to reset that team that they have within their organization to make sure that they're achieving the goal, which is keeping people safe. At the end of the day, that's the goal. You got to keep people safe. You got to keep the fires away. They got to keep the crime and the safety, law and order in place, and all these organizations have to communicate. Someone has to be, and I'm sure they're supposed to have someone that kind of coordinates all this communication, but that thing failed. Probably because of the management of that organization or the breakdown of everybody else. So it is not complex. People have done this for years, and they do it every day around the world, and they don't have these kinds of silly. This is just like dumb, stupid ways for people to die. It's just really unfortunate. So I think that's where I would go. But then again, if you want to go a higher level, people have to engage. People have to get engaged with, holding their government accountable. I was telling a friend of mine who's born here and he's a local. I was telling him, if I don't see people out on the street demonstrating, trying to take down this governor or this mayor or whatever, I will believe that people don't care. Because what happened in Maui should not have happened, and people have to be accountable for that. And whoever's going to come next needs to know that they will be held accountable if something like this ever happened. So this needs to be like a memorable, these people should not be dying in vain. This should be a big event. It's a memorable event that people were accountable, that people, this will not happen again. There will be systems in place. There will be leadership in place that will make sure that none of this would happen again. But unfortunately, we all know, what normally the way these things go is that, there's a failure of governance. They blame it on some external thing, which is environment or some, thing. And, they ask for a lot of money and they get a lot of money. They enrich themselves and their families and their multiple generations. They move on from office and someone else comes and, we're relearning the same lessons again 5-10 years from now. And it'd be a shame if that's what happened. In
your experience now, as you look back, being in the heart of the fire, in the heart of this scenario, did you make any mistakes you wish you would have changed?
Not really. I mean, based on the environment, the way it was, maybe it may make a wrong turn here, wrong turn there, but no, actually, I'm lucky. I think I got lucky where things played out the way it could have gone. It was a 50-50 at a lot of different points. Yeah. So I don't think I'm the only thing that I can say is I'm just grateful and thankful that I had certain breaks and I got lucky in certain points where I was able to do that, to make that decision, to move quicker. And maybe some places I waited for an hour and a half instead of doing a U-turn, an hour earlier, but they're just part of like the whole experience. But I don't think there's anything that I would change everything about it. I would not, but and as far as decision making, there's not much I would change.
Why do you think you did so well under that scenario and the majority of your peers that were in that got stuck, didn't work? What do you think?
I've always lived with the assumption that no one knows anything. So I'm just that type. I keep moving, I keep asking, I keep, looking. I want to check for myself. I have like a healthy distrust of authority. I have a healthy skepticism of people's knowledge or information or awareness. And so I work under the assumption that, majority of people just don't know. And they're not well informed. They're well-meaning, but they're just not informed. And that most people just assume things and they hear a piece of information and assume something. So sometimes people talk to you with authority as if they know, when they just have no basis of that knowledge. You just heard somebody say something. So I'm a student of human nature. I love humans and I love, we talk, my kids and I were having this really fun conversation this morning about personality profiles. And my kids are into Harry Potter. And we're telling them about how Harry Potter has a set of characters, I don't know, maybe 12 or 14 different known famous characters. And each one of those characters has personality profiles. And usually authors have this thing where they pick from the personality, Enneagram, whatever, they pick those characters with those personalities. So we start saying, from your friends, who are the characters? Or like, who are you? You know what I mean? Which, my daughter, which one are you? My son, which one are you? Who's mommy? Who's daddy? Who's, the friends? And we kept going friend by friend. And then they came to realize like, oh my God, this is true. And that people you can see those profiles repeating. So the idea there is that if you pay attention, you're going to notice the same personality profile repeating itself. And if you're paying attention, if you learn how those profiles communicate and how they behave, you can have a superpower of predicting people's behavior and be able to, communicate with them effectively. And if you want to lead or whatever, you can do a lot more with people if you understand the diversity of human profiles or human personality profiles. And so I love that. and I'm a student of people. I'm a student of behavior. I'm a student of mental models, and I have a healthy skepticism of people's knowledge. And so I just keep moving until I find out for myself. And I keep, I'll take 25 no's or 50 no's. I'm okay with that. I'm willing to take those no's. That's part of being a business owner, is that you're used to getting rejection, and until you get through what you want to get through. So, and you're willing to take a risk. I think there's an element of risk tolerance. You're willing to take the risk to go discover for yourself, and not assume that that road is that road. You're gonna die if you go take that road. So, so I think that's kind of that's what helped is the fact that that I'm someone who like to seek for information for myself.
So as we wrap up, you'd mentioned that you'd taken this course on disaster preparedness.
Yeah.
We're going to put a link to to get more information in this, but as we wrap up, what'd you get from that course, and why do you think it's important for people to check that out?
Yeah, it was fascinating. The reason why I took the course is in 2013, my daughter was probably 3 months, and we had this big earthquakes, and I lived on a condo building, 4th floor, and I could literally feel the building move, and it was so scary. And I remember myself running into the bedroom, picking up my baby, and then finding my wife, not really thinking what else I'm gonna get, just getting out of the building. That's all I did. Just grab the car keys and get out of the building. Yep. And we just drove away. And as I'm driving away, I was thinking, man, this is a very inefficient process that just happened because
That's so funny.
What if the building burned down? What if, because a lot of the effects of an earthquake is fire usually, and that's what usually kills people. And so I said, there's got to be information out there that's, so I looked it up literally that weekend, and I found out that FEMA had a program, I think called CERT, C-E-R-T, and you could go through it, and it was a 6-week night, a couple hours program. And it was very deep. You go into all the different types of natural disasters, how neighbors can, how communication. So how to, when things happen, break down the communication when there's no cell phone, there's no things. So what are some of the tools available? They teach you about how to use a ham radio. They teach you how to find frequencies. They teach you what's the cops frequency and the firefighter frequency, and then how you as neighbors can organize and can communicate. If a high point and a low point, if there's a flood, you're going to go to a high point. So all of you know where the high point is. How to know your neighbors, and know elderly or people that are sick or maybe have pets. How to kind of communicate with them. How to relay that information to the police or to the firefighter, or be the conduit from the firefighters and the police to the people in your neighborhood. And then they bring the chief of police in your town. You get to know them. You get to understand how they operate. You get the firefighters. You get the FEMA guys. There are a lot of organizations that coordinate. There are resources out there, but just people don't know. And it's that training is a good way for them to, number one, get to know and get to find the contacts. And how to build a go bag, like a prepare bag that you're going to grab and go in case of something happens. What do you want? You want batteries, you want a ham radio, you want cash, you want your copies of your documents. You want to have a copy of your passport, copy of your birth certificate, copy of your driver license, and all your documents. You want copies there. There's certain things that you want to have in that go bag that you're just going to grab and go. You may forget maybe a copy of your car keys in there. Maybe, so a lot of things that you can just go, and then it's somewhere where you can go quickly grab and then get out of the door. And so, what do you have? You've stuck in your home. How much water do you need to have? How much, batteries and food, dry food, what kind of dry food lasts, and what works and what doesn't work. Yeah. Know where your gas line is. know where, everybody in your house should know where your gas line is. Everybody in your house should know where, turn off the electricity, turn off stuff around the mechanics of the house itself and how to protect it from a fire. California is prone to that, prone to earthquakes. The ability to have a generator. We were in the Northern California once, and there was a massive earthquake there. I think it was just last year or year before during Christmas, and the house just shook, and lucky the house had a generator, so it turned on, and so we were able to have electricity for like 3-4 days. So a lot of these things are very valuable to know, and especially when we all are living these natural disasters pretty much every 2-3 years.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, Jay, thanks for sharing your story. It's when you first told me, it was like, it blew my mind. So I'm so glad that you came on camera with us and you shared it. Lots of takeaways, and I just appreciate you showing up today and telling us what really happened on Maui.
Yeah. And the stuff that's coming out right now is just crazier and crazier every day. I really hope that people really, stand up and hold these people accountable, because
what's the news that's coming out? Like, what are you seeing?
Well, the whole water thing, like they were talking to this guy, and then the whole, they had the sirens system, and the cops made the decision not to turn that siren on. The communication breakdown, the fact that the cops were pushing people into the fire, that was written by in the New York Times and stuff. So this is the fact that they had kids that they closed the schools, so there were kids in their homes because that shut down the schools, and they essentially trapped these kids. That's why they have like 1,000 people missing now.
Yeah,
and I mean, after 4 days, Lahaina is not that big.
Yeah, it's small.
It's small. So a lot of stuff is coming out, and how the fire hydrants didn't work. At some point they were saying, because the electricity was down, there was no pumping of water into the fire hydrants. Didn't make any sense. There's just all these different things. The electricity wasn't shut down early enough, and then some people was like, it was too early. The fact that those wires was supposed to be underground because they always break. The fact that some of the fires are arson, they're not electrical related, and the fact that they've had arson many times the last 2-3 years, and that the mayor actually came out and says, "Hey, we know we have a lot of arson, and we're gonna find them." Well,
they didn't find him.
Yeah, wow. And they were not prepared. That's the thing. Like, I get it if you don't find him, but you shouldn't not be prepared for him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So if you have fire truck that can't do anything because you can't plug into anything, so why do you have a fire department if you have a truck that doesn't do it? There were no helicopters. There was no visibility. There was none. It was just like, there was like accumulation of incompetence that compounded. It's been compounding for like the last 5-10 years. And I really hope that the worst thing that can happen to this island is that those people that were incompetent get filthy rich. They're gonna be dumped. They're gonna dump $20 billion on them, and then they're gonna be right in the middle of distributing. They're gonna be like 1,000 LLCs created that are shaving 30% of everything. You know what's gonna happen. If you're at the front of 20 billion being distributed, 30% easy. It's going to be shaved this way. You come this way, we're going to send the rest. Maybe another 20% is going to be taken out. Like, as you go down the funnel, probably only about 20 or 30% is going to make it to the people.
Man, all right, dude. Again, thanks for the story. Appreciate you.